This will be a map review of the Uglies by Scott Westerfield. This is map review, spoiler warnings. Okay. Tally, the main character, wants to visit her friend Paris, spelled with a P and an E. Yes, that's a good idea. He lives in Pretty Town. She lives in Uglyville. She will move to Uglyville in 2 months, something odd days. Plot. World building. So she goes across the town, meets with Paris, says, come back in 2 months, 27 days when you're pretty, because right now you're a hideous sight. I don't want to look at you. Not what he really says, but moving on. In her escape, which is not allowed, you're not allowed to be in this pretty town unless you're pretty, she runs into another girl who is not pretty by the name of Shay. They become best friends, hoverboard across a bridge that is iron and doesn't talk. Always nice when the bridges don't talk. So they live in Uglyville. They hoverboard a lot. Hoverboards are a thing. They need an iron piece under them to work. Important because the entire city has it. Eventually, Shay decides to convince Tally to go out to visit the Rusty Ruins. Well, who are the Rusties? The Rusties are us. Yes, that's right. Modern society that loves to burn oil. Those crazy people that like to burn trees, too. Burning trees. So they go to the Rusty Ruins. They roll around a bit, and they run into a... what's that little loop-de-loop thing? Roller coaster, yes, that's what it's called. So they run into a roller coaster, use the hoverboards. The hoverboards have a little jolt when the roller coaster loses a piece. Oh well, it's been around for 300 years. They go back to the city, and the day before Shay is about to be turned into a pretty, she decides to run away after talking about this person by the name of David, who says that there's a place where you can live where you don't have to be pretty and still live a decent life. Ridiculous. So Shay runs away. A few days later, Tally is about ready to go into the hospital to become pretty. What is becoming pretty? Basically is the equivalent of having massive plastic surgery. I don't know why. So they go to the hospital, they wait for an hour, then she gets in a hover car and drives around the town for a little while until she's taken to a special building with the hill nearby. The hill is an important plot. In this building, she meets with a Dr. Cable. Who is Dr. Cable? She is a pretty, but she's absolutely terrifying. Dr. Cable says, where is Shay? I don't know. She ran away. And she said, well, until you help me find Shay and this David person, you're not going to be turned pretty. 4 days later, after returning back to Uglyville, in which everybody's like, why are you still here? You're supposed to be pretty. 16. Get with the program. Paris comes to town, and after talking with Paris, through the power of talking, she decides to turn over a friend. So she takes a note that Shay wrote, which I forgot to mention, back to Dr. Cable, and Dr. Cable's like, yes, we already know this. You're going to get on a hoverboard, find this place called The Smoke, which is where Shay supposedly ran off to with David. You find this place, you'll be turned pretty. Great. So you give a hoverboard a few weeks of supply, and a pendant in the shape of the heart, which is some sort of pet tracking beacon. She spends several days wandering around, goes back to the Rusty Ruins, follows the roller coaster, follows a train, nearly falls off the train tracks into a ravine, then does it again because that's what the note said. She runs into a helicopter which nearly kills her, which doesn't really kill her while she was taking a bath in the river. Moving on, so she then follows this river after falling the second time into a field of white flowers. Where these white flowers, I don't know. Then a helicopter shows up again and starts burning everything, where she runs into people who are pretties, which confuses her greatly what they're doing. They take the helicopter, they recognize who she is, they fly her to a place where they're supposed to find the smoke. The people in this helicopter are from another town, because there are apparently multiple towns all over the world. And they talk about how this flower was created by the Rusties and how it's taking over the world and is causing a geological disaster. Biological disaster, not geological disaster. So they take her to this hill and they leave her there, at which point Shay, a guy named Croy, and the mysterious David show up. They take her to the smoke where, they're burning trees and they kill animals? And they wear their skins. Ugh. Moving on, she spends a few days in the smoke, wondering whether or not to turn them over by activating the pendant. She meets a few people. David decides to take her to his parents, and their parents were apparently doctors that realize that everybody who turns pretty gets a brain operation that makes them idiots. That's not fun. Suffering from physical attraction from David, which is really weird because that's not supposed to happen, she decides to throw the pendant in the fire, and then the next day special circumstances show up because the pendant was apparently designed to activate whether it was destroyed or whether it was properly working. David and Tally escape after a massive thing. They spend a few days wandering around trying to avoid the town. Everybody at the smoke's captured and go to special circumstances. They eventually end up in the Rusty Ruins where they launch an attack using the bridge. No, not the bridge. That is a hill. Using the hill, they launch into the place, find Dr. Cable, find the parents. Shay's been turned into a pretty. They make their escape, taking 4 people with them. They go back to the Rusty Ruins. The Rusty movements move from here to here because of convenience for my 2-dimensional viewings. At which point, David's mother says that they received some information that they stole on their way out that tells them how to fix the thing. And now that Shay's pretty, this is a great chance to experiment on it, see if this new drug works, because apparently Hippocratic oaths still matter when your entire world is being controlled by massive tyrannical governments. It still matters, so they refuse to do it because Shay, who is lobotomically screwed in the head, says she doesn't want it, which of course you wouldn't. Does a drug addict say that they don't want the drug? Don't want the cure to the drug. And so they decide to have Tally and Shay return, where Tally will be turned into a pretty, and thus allow for the continuation of the second book's plot. That is it. This is Book Zealots. I am Prometheus. Thank you for watching.